They thought they could mock her traditional values, sneering questions designed to make her look small. Her eyes flashed with quiet confidence. One truthful sentence left the reporter speechless. The Beverly Hilton's International Ballroom sparkled with impossible glamour, crystal chandeliers casting golden light across a sea of designer gowns and tailored suits as the annual Music Cares Foundation. Gala transformed the already opulent space into something almost ethereal. Beneath the polished surface, beneath the practiced smiles and air kisses, tension simmered like invisible currents. This wasn't just a charity event, but a carefully choreographed performance where industry power players and artists navigated complex hierarchies under the watchful gaze of the media. Jason Reynolds adjusted his tie, checking his reflection in a mirrored column. 15 years at entertainment, now, had taught him exactly how to blend, how to look like he belonged in spaces reserved for the elite. His producer Megan whispered into her headset, confirming his position near the east entrance to the waiting camera crew, knowing that Reynolds wasn't like other entertainment reporters. He didn't chase predictable sound bites or settle for pre-approved questions. He created moments, viral confrontations that drove traffic, generated clicks, and built his reputation as the journalist celebrities feared most on red carpets. Tonight, his target was Carrie Underwood, country music superstar and crossover sensation. But more importantly, to Reynolds, an outspoken person of faith whose values he deemed outdated, worthy of exposure, confrontation, and humiliation for his network's eager audience. Megan's voice buzzed in his earpiece, alerting him that she would arrive in 5 minutes through the northwest entrance with her team, and as Reynolds surveyed the room one final time, mentally rehearsing his carefully designed questions meant not to gather information, but to provoke, to corner, to expose what he considered the hypocrisy of conservative artists in liberal Hollywood. The gala continued around him. Industry executives engaged in animated conversation. Artists greeted fans with practiced warmth. Photographers captured carefully curated moments that would fill tomorrow's entertainment feeds. Near the bar, Grammy-winning producer Trent Davis chatted with a group of young musicians, occasionally glancing toward the entrance where celebrities arrived in waves of expensive fabric and blinding jewelry, remarking to no one in particular, "I heard Reynolds is here. Someone should warn Carrie." It was well known throughout the industry what an interview with Jason Reynolds meant. Not conversation, but confrontation. Not journalism, but blood sport designed to generate viral clips at the expense of whoever entered his crosshairs. Across the room, Melissa Chen, Carrie's publicist of 7 years, was already scanning for potential issues. Her experienced eye-noting camera positions, reporter placements, and potential ambush points. 15 years guiding artists through media minefields had given her an almost supernatural ability to sense danger before it materialized. And something about Reynolds' positioning, his too casual stance, his calculated gaze, triggered immediate concern. She reached for her phone to alert Carrie's security team, but it was already too late. A ripple of energy moved through the crowd, announcing Carrie's arrival without words, the subtle shift that occurs when genuine star power enters a room. Carrie Underwood stepped into the ballroom, elegance personified in blue couture, her smile warm and authentic. Not manufactured for cameras, but seemingly emanating from a genuine place within. Unlike many celebrities who moved with practiced indifference, she paused often, greeting staff, thanking volunteers, acknowledging photographers with the same warmth she showed industry executives. Her Oklahoma roots evident in her unpretentious grace and genuine connection with everyone who crossed her path. Reynolds watched, calculating, noting her movements, her patterns, the moments when security loosened, when she might be most accessible, most vulnerable to his planned approach, while Megan's voice returned to his ear, pressing him for something explosive, something shareable. And as he acknowledged the command with a slight touch to his earpiece, he knew he had built his brand on moments like this, on manufacturing confrontations that appeared spontaneous but were carefully designed for maximum impact. Near the bar, a young server watched Carrie with undisguised admiration, whispering to a colleague about how she and her sister used to sing her songs in their church choir, remarking that she seemed exactly as they had hoped she would be, her authenticity evident to anyone watching. except to Reynolds, whose cynical lens filtered everything in the entertainment landscape through a calculated pursuit of controversy. Melissa finally spotted him, recognizing his purposeful stance, the subtle positioning of his camera crew, the calculated casual demeanor that preceded his ambush interviews, and she moved quickly through the crowd, hoping to intercept, to redirect, to protect her client from the confrontation being orchestrated. But the room was crowded, the path indirect, and Reynolds saw his opportunity approaching. His finger tapped twice against his glass, the signal to his camera operator, who immediately began moving into position with practiced invisibility. The hallmark of experienced paparazzi and ambush journalists, while Carrie continued greeting guests, pausing for photos, signing an autograph for a nervous catering staff member who confessed her daughter was the biggest fan in Oklahoma City, her genuine warmth evident in every interaction. Her faith was not something performed for cameras, but something lived in natural, authentic ways that informed every aspect of her presence. And Reynolds, now moving with purpose, cut through the crowd on an intercept path, his expression shifting from calculated observer to the warm, approachable mask he wore when setting up his targets for the kill, as Megan's voice urged him on, reminding him that the cameras were in perfect position. Melissa was still too far away, still trying to navigate the crowded room, watching with growing concern as Reynolds closed the distance, his intention clear to anyone who understood the predatory nature of viral journalism, the hunger for moments of controversy, of confrontation, of celebrity discomfort that drove engagement in digital media. Carrie turned slightly, responding to someone, unaware of the calculated approach, the carefully orchestrated moment about to unfold in this glittering space where charity and celebration were supposed to be the evening's purpose, but would soon become the backdrop for something else entirely. Reynolds straightened his shoulders, putting on his most disarming smile, the one that had preceded dozens of viral moments, career-defining confrontations that built his reputation as the journalist who didn't play by the rules, who pushed boundaries, who created content rather than merely capturing it. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly anticipate, what 15 years of ambush interviews hadn't prepared him to recognize, was that Carrie Underwood wasn't like his previous targets, and the moment about to unfold wouldn't follow his carefully crafted script. Carrie's laughter carried across the room, genuine, warm, and inviting, as she chatted with a young songwriter who had approached with nervous reverence to thank her for recording one of her compositions. The connection between them was immediate and authentic, transcending the usual celebrity-fan dynamic to create something more meaningful, more human, in the artificial landscape of industry networking and performative gratitude. Reynolds observed from 20 feet away, cataloging details, calculating his approach, timing the perfect moment to interrupt, to insert himself into her evening with questions designed not to learn but to provoke, to expose, to generate the kind of confrontation his audience craved. His cameraman David positioned himself with practiced invisibility, ensuring perfect framing for whatever unfolded, making sure Reynolds would appear reasonable even as his questions grew increasingly hostile. It was a dance they had performed countless times, turning celebrities into content, turning confrontation into currency. Melissa was still trying to reach Carrie, still navigating the crowded room, her concern growing as she spotted not just Reynolds but his camera crew, the subtle positioning that signaled an ambush interview in preparation. She caught the eye of Mark, Carrie's security, gestured toward Reynolds with urgency, but the room was too crowded, the distance too great, the moment approaching too quickly. Reynolds touched his earpiece, listening as Megan provided final direction. Remember the angle, faith, politics, the contradiction between Christian values and Hollywood. Get her defensive, get her angry. We need something shareable. He nodded imperceptibly, 15 years of manufacturing confrontation having taught him exactly which buttons to push, which questions to ask, which implications to make, to create the viral moments that built careers in the attention economy of entertainment media. Carrie finished her conversation, hugged the young songwriter with genuine warmth, turned to continue her path through the room, unaware of the calculated approach, the orchestrated moment, the planned provocation awaiting her just steps away. A server approached with champagne, and Carrie smiled, declining politely. A small moment revealing a personal choice, not performed for cameras or public consumption, just quiet consistency with her own values, without judgment, without declaration. Reynolds saw his opening, moved forward, camera crew following at the perfect distance, his expression shifting into the disarming smile that preceded his most devastating interviews. "Ms. Underwood," he called, his voice carrying just the right notes of friendliness and authority. "Might I have just a moment of your time?" She turned, smiled graciously. "Of course," she replied with natural politeness, unaware of the trap being laid, the camera already recording, already capturing what Reynolds intended to become her most uncomfortable public moment. "Entertainment now," he introduced himself, extending his hand with practiced charm. "We're speaking with artists tonight about the Foundation's important work." She nodded, appreciative, engaged. "It's such an important cause," she began. "So many musicians face health challenges without adequate support." Reynolds nodded, feigning interest, allowing her to complete her thought before executing the practiced pivot, the sudden shift in topic and tone that had become his signature move, his ambush journalism trademark. "So tell me," he said, his voice shifting slightly, "how do you reconcile your faith with working in an industry that often promotes values contrary to what you claim to believe?" The question hung in the air, its contours revealing intent, not inquiry, but confrontation, not journalism, but provocation, designed to create discomfort, designed to generate a reaction, designed to transform a person into content. Carrie's expression changed slightly, not angry, not defensive, just thoughtful as she processed the sudden shift, the clear intent, the trap being laid before her. "I don't see a contradiction," she began, her voice still calm, still measured. "My faith is about love, about compassion, about trying to walk a path of kindness." Reynolds cut her off immediately. "But your church has specific teachings about lifestyle choices many of your colleagues and fans make, doesn't it?" His tone was now openly challenging, the friendly facade completely abandoned, the camera capturing every micro-expression, every subtle reaction to his provocation. Around them, the room continued buzzing with conversation, with celebration, but a small bubble of attention had formed. Other guests noticing the interview, recognizing Reynolds, his approach, his intent, some watching with concern, some with interest, some with the uncomfortable recognition of a predator closing in on intended prey. Melissa had finally reached the edge of the group, close enough now to hear the questions, to see the trap being laid, to recognize the manufactured moment taking shape. She moved to intervene, to redirect, but Carrie caught her eye, shook her head slightly. A subtle signal that intervention wasn't needed, that she could handle whatever came. Carrie's voice remained steady. "I think faith is often misunderstood," she began, "often reduced to simple prohibitions when it's really about how we treat each other, how we extend grace, how we—" Reynolds interrupted again, more forcefully this time. "But you've been vocal about certain beliefs that many consider judgmental, outdated. How do you justify that platform given the diversity of your audience?" The question wasn't really a question. It was accusation. It was provocation. It was the setup for a viral moment, for shareable content, for manufactured outrage. David zoomed in, camera steady, capturing what Reynolds expected would be a defensive reaction, an angry response, the emotional outburst that would drive traffic, engagement, network metrics measuring success in digital media. Nearby guests exchanged uncomfortable glances, recognizing the ambush, the setup, the deliberate provocation unfolding in a space meant for celebration, for charity, for the music community's shared purpose, beyond political division, beyond cultural warfare. Carrie took a small breath, centered herself, her expression revealing not anger, not defensiveness, not the emotional response Reynolds had calculated, provoked, anticipated, but something else entirely, something authentic, measured, thoughtful, that didn't fit his predetermined narrative. Actual grace in action, not performed, not declared, but simply lived in genuine response to deliberate provocation. Megan's voice was urgent in Reynolds' earpiece. "Push harder. We need reaction. We need something more explosive." Reynolds nodded imperceptibly, shifted his stance, leaned in slightly, his body language now openly aggressive, his tone abandoning any pretense of inquiry. "You've been called hypocritical for participating in an industry that often contradicts your stated values. How do you respond to critics who say you're simply using faith to build a specific brand for commercial gain? The attack was now explicit, undisguised, the intent clear to everyone watching, to provoke an emotional response, to generate a viral moment, to transform person into content, controversy into currency in the attention economy of modern media. But as Carrie prepared to respond, as Reynolds leaned forward, anticipating the reaction he had carefully orchestrated, the moment was building towards something neither he nor his producer nor his audience could possibly have anticipated. Reynolds pressed forward aggressively now, his practiced smile completely abandoned, replaced by the barely concealed contempt that was his true reaction to artists like Carrie, whose values he considered performative, outdated, worthy only of exposure and ridicule. "Let's talk about your fan base," he continued, voice dripping with condescension. "You've built a career appealing to, let's say, traditional values while enjoying the benefits of an industry that stands against many of those same values. Don't you find that contradictory?" The provocation was explicit now, undisguised, the intent clear to everyone watching, to corner, to trap, to force either anger or an uncomfortable admission, either way creating the viral clip his network demanded. Carrie remained composed, her posture open, her expression revealing neither anger nor the defensive reaction he sought. "I think that assumes fans are one-dimensional," she began, her voice still steady. "That people who appreciate certain values can't also appreciate diverse perspectives, can't find common ground in music." Reynolds cut her off immediately. "But your church specifically condemns many of the lifestyle choices celebrated by the entertainment industry. How do you justify your participation in what many would consider a sinful culture?" The word choice was deliberately provocative, designed to trigger an emotional response, to create the shareable moment that drove traffic in digital media. Around them, the bubble of attention expanded, more guests noticing the confrontation, recognizing Reynolds' tactics, his intent. Some expressions showing disgust, others the uncomfortable recognition of predatory journalism in action. Grammy-winning artist Leon Matthews took a step closer, concern evident in his expression, his body language suggesting potential intervention if the provocation continued escalating. Melissa had moved to Carrie's side now, ready to end the interview, to redirect, to protect her client from the deliberate attempt to create viral humiliation. But Carrie's composure remained steady, her hand gently signaling to Melissa that intervention wasn't necessary. David zoomed the camera tighter, focusing on Carrie's face, capturing what Reynolds expected would be the breaking point, the emotional reaction, the defensive response that would generate millions of views across platforms. "I think faith is often misunderstood," Carrie began again, her voice still measured. "It's more about my personal journey, about trying to live with kindness." Reynolds interrupted again, more forcefully. "That sounds convenient, a way to avoid addressing the contradiction between what you claim to believe and the industry that makes you wealthy." His tone was now openly hostile, dismissive, any pretense of a legitimate interview abandoned in favor of confrontation, provocation, the manufacturing of viral content at the expense of human dignity. Megan's voice crackled in his earpiece, urging more escalation, more pressure. "Perfect. Keep pushing. We're almost there. She can't take much more of this." But what neither of them recognized, what 15 years of ambush interviews hadn't prepared them to identify, was that Carrie's composure wasn't a facade, wasn't performance, wasn't the brittle shell of celebrity polished to perfect smoothness. It was something deeper, more authentic, built through years of public scrutiny, through genuine faith, through values lived, not merely proclaimed. Mark, Carrie's security, had finally reached them, positioned himself nearby, ready to intervene, to end the increasingly hostile interview, his expression revealing clear awareness of Reynolds' reputation, his tactics, his intent to create controversy at any cost. Reynolds sensed his moment slipping, the viral clip still uncaptured, the emotional response still unproduced, the content still unmade despite increasingly aggressive provocation. "Let's be honest," he said, his voice hardening further. "Your music, your image, your entire brand is built on appealing to an audience with views many considers backward, intolerant. How do you justify profiting from that while enjoying Hollywood acceptance?" The attack was now complete, the accusation explicit. the trap fully laid, the moment prepared for whatever response might generate the most engagement, the most reaction, the most valuable currency in digital media. Nearby guests exchanged glances, some uncomfortable, some angry, recognizing the deliberate provocation, the intentional disrespect, the calculated attack on someone known throughout the industry for kindness, for professionalism, for authenticity. Leon Matthews moved closer still, ready now to intervene, to defend, to end the inappropriate confrontation unfolding in a space meant for celebration. Carrie's expression shifted slightly, not to anger, not to defensiveness, but to something resembling compassion for the man so desperately trying to provoke a reaction, to manufacture a moment, to create content from conflict. "I understand why you're asking these questions," she began, her voice somehow both gentle and firm. "But I think they reflect a fundamental misunderstanding of faith, of art, of human connection." Reynolds sensed danger, not physical, but to his narrative, to his planned viral moment, to the content he had promised to deliver. He cut her off again, his voice rising slightly. "These aren't misunderstandings. These are contradictions that your fans deserve honest answers about." The shifting in his tactics was now transparent, the desperation becoming evident as his target refused to react, refused to provide the emotional response, the defensive posture, the angry rejection that would generate clicks. David zoomed tighter still, camera steady, capturing what was becoming increasingly clear to everyone watching, to everyone present. The failure of ambush journalism against genuine authenticity, against grace lived, not performed, declared, not displayed. Megan's voice was increasingly urgent in Reynolds' earpiece. "Do something. We need reaction. We need emotion. We can't use calm, reasonable responses." Reynolds nodded imperceptibly, made one final calculated attempt, one last deliberate provocation designed to break through composure, to generate the viral moment promised to his network, his audience, his career. "Your songs often reference faith, but you perform in revealing outfits, sing about revenge, relationships that seem contrary to those same values. Isn't that the definition of hypocrisy?" The accusation hung in the air, its contours revealing not journalism, but attack, not inquiry, but entrapment, the deliberate attempt to create controversy, conflict, content from human interaction, human dignity. The room had grown quieter now, more attention focused on the exchange, industry figures watching with growing concern at the inappropriateness of the ambush, the deliberate disrespect, the calculated attempt to humiliate someone universally respected for professionalism, for kindness, for genuine character. Mark stepped forward slightly, ready now to end the interview, to protect his client from further deliberate provocation, calculated disrespect. But Carrie gently touched his arm, a subtle signal that intervention wasn't needed, that she could handle whatever came, that she wouldn't be provoked, wouldn't react in ways that would generate the viral moment Reynolds so desperately sought to manufacture. And then she smiled, not with anger, not with condescension, not with the brittle politeness of celebrity-enduring, unwanted interaction, but with something genuine, something authentic, something that suggested understanding of the game being played, the trap being laid, the content being manufactured at her expense. "I think we might have different understandings," she began, her voice clear, steady, "of what faith actually means in practice, of how it shapes a life, a career, a perspective." Reynolds opened his mouth to interrupt again, to redirect, to maintain control of narrative, of exchange, of a manufactured moment. But something in her expression, in her presence, in the quiet authenticity she emanated, made the words die in his throat, as the moment he had carefully orchestrated, the confrontation he had deliberately provoked, transformed into something entirely unexpected, something he hadn't planned, couldn't control, couldn't shape into the viral content his career, his brand, his reputation required. In the crystalline silence that followed, Carrie Underwood did something unexpected, something neither Reynolds, his producer, nor the watching crowd had anticipated. She spoke with genuine kindness. "You know," she began, her voice gentle but clear, "I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma where faith wasn't something political. It wasn't a brand, wasn't a marketing strategy. It was simply how we tried to live, with kindness, with grace, with humility. Reynolds stood frozen, uncertain. This wasn't defensive, wasn't angry, wasn't the emotional reaction he had carefully provoked and deliberately sought to generate content and manufacture a moment. Her eyes held his directly, honestly, without anger, without condescension, just authentic connection that somehow cut through the artifice of the situation, the manufactured controversy, the prepared conflict. "I understand why these questions feel important," she continued, "why they seem to reveal contradiction. But I think they come from a fundamental misunderstanding of what faith means, at least what it has always meant to me." Around them, the room had gone completely silent, guests watching transfixed as something unexpected unfolded. Not confrontation, but conversation. Not defense, but dialogue. Not reaction, but reflection. Something genuine breaking through the artificial landscape of celebrity interaction. David's camera captured it all: the steady gaze, the authentic presence, the quiet strength that somehow transformed what had been designed as an ambush into something entirely different. Something Reynolds hadn't planned for, hadn't experienced in 15 years of manufacturing viral moments. Megan's voice was urgent in his earpiece. "Do something, get control back. This isn't working, we need reaction." But her words seemed distant as Reynolds found himself actually listening, actually engaging with what Carrie was saying, not as content to be shaped, but as a human exchange that somehow transcended his planned narrative. "My faith teaches me," she said, "that none of us is perfect, that judgment isn't our job, that love and compassion should guide how we treat every person we meet, even those who may see the world differently." The simple truth of her words, the lack of pretense, the absence of performance, created something powerful, something that reached beyond religious doctrine, beyond political division, beyond cultural warfare to touch something universally human. Leon Matthews nodded slightly. Other guests leaned in, listeners now, not spectators to manufactured conflict, but participants in an authentic moment none of them had anticipated. "When I write songs," she continued, "about real human experiences, about love, loss, anger, forgiveness, I'm not contradicting my faith. I'm exploring what it means to be human, what it means to struggle, to fall, to rise again, what it means to live with compassion in a world that often lacks it." Reynolds felt something shift within himself, a reluctant recognition that what was happening, while threatening everything he had planned, was also revealing possibilities he had long ago abandoned for what human interaction could be, for what communication could accomplish when it transcended performance, when it embraced authenticity. "I wear stage costumes," she acknowledged with a smile. "I perform songs about relationships, about emotions that reflect real human experiences, because faith isn't about pretending to be perfect. It's about acknowledging our shared humanity, our shared struggles, our shared hopes." Her words carried no judgment, no defensiveness, just clarity, authenticity, perspective, that somehow transformed the entire exchange from confrontation to connection, from provocation to understanding, from a manufactured moment to a genuine exchange. David zoomed out slightly, camera steady, capturing not just Carrie now, but the context, the watching crowd, the respectful attention, the unexpected transformation of an ambush interview into something worthy of documentation for reasons entirely different than originally planned, originally intended. "My fans come from all backgrounds," Carrie continued, "all beliefs, all perspectives, and what connects us isn't agreement on everything. It's music, it's emotion, it's shared human experience beyond the labels, beyond the divisions that often seem to define us." Reynolds found himself nodding slightly, the practiced cynicism, the calculated confrontation momentarily suspended as something authentic broke through his professional persona, reached beyond the role he played in the ecosystem of entertainment media. Melissa watched with quiet pride as her client transformed what had been designed as a moment of humiliation, as content creation at her personal expense, into something that revealed character, that demonstrated values, not merely proclaimed but lived, in genuine response to deliberate provocation. "I respect that you have questions," Carrie said, her eyes still holding Reynolds' gaze. "I respect that your perspective is different, that your understanding of faith might not align with my experience, but that's exactly what makes conversation valuable, what makes connection possible." Her generosity in that moment, her refusal to be provoked, her choice to respond with kindness to deliberate disrespect, created something powerful, something unexpected, something that reached beyond the immediate exchange to touch everyone watching, everyone listening, everyone present in that transformed space. Reynolds found words finally, but not the ones he had prepared, not the follow-up designed to corner, to trap, to provoke, but something more genuine, more human, more aligned with actual curiosity. "How do you maintain that perspective?" he asked, voice softer than before, "in an industry that often pushes against traditional values?" The question still carried assumptions, still reflected his perspective, but the intent had shifted somehow from provocation to inquiry, from manufacturing content to seeking understanding, a subtle but profound transformation that everyone present could feel. Carrie smiled, recognized the shift, acknowledged it with subtle grace. "I don't see the world as divided between industry and faith, between secular and spiritual, between us and them," she explained. "I see people trying their best, bringing their whole selves to their art, to their work, to their relationships. None of us perfect, all of us valuable." The simplicity of her response, the lack of defensiveness, the absence of judgment, carried a power that transcended the artificial constructs of the situation, reached beyond performance, beyond persona, to something authentically human. Around them, the room remained silent, attention focused not on celebrity spectacle, not on manufactured controversy, but on genuine exchange, on authentic voice, on something that rarely emerged in the carefully constructed interactions that normally characterized such spaces. Megan's voice had gone silent in Reynolds' ear, the producer recognizing something unexpected, something unplanned, something potentially more valuable than the viral confrontation originally sought, originally demanded. David's camera captured it all. The transformation of a hostile interview into human connection. The shift from provocation to conversation, from manufactured content to authentic exchange that no one had anticipated, no one had planned, but everyone recognized as something rare, something genuine, something real. Reynolds felt something unfamiliar stirring in his professional consciousness. Not the satisfaction of a successful ambush, not the triumph of a viral moment captured, but the rarer, deeper recognition of having witnessed something authentic, something that transcended the hollow performance of celebrity journalism, of manufactured controversy, of content created at human expense. And as Carrie continued speaking, her voice steady, her perspective clear, her presence somehow transforming not just the interview, but the entire space. Everyone watching, everyone listening, everyone present understood they were witnessing not the viral moment Reynolds had planned, but something infinitely more valuable, authentic grace in action. The ballroom felt different now, transformed by something authentic that had broken through the carefully constructed performance of celebrity journalism. Reynolds stood unnaturally still, his usual confidence visibly recalibrated as Carrie continued speaking, not with rehearsed talking points or defensiveness, but with quiet clarity that carried more authority than his practiced provocations. "I think what connects us all," she said, her voice warm and genuine, "is our shared humanity, our common struggles, our desire to be understood, to be accepted, to find meaning in our experiences, whether through faith, through art, through connection." The words hung in the air, simple yet profound, reaching beyond religious doctrine, political division, and cultural warfare to touch something universally human. David widened his shot, capturing not just Carrie and Reynolds, but the watching crowd, their expressions revealing an unexpected recognition of an authentic moment breaking through artificial interaction. In the control room, Megan stared at the live feed. This wasn't the content they had planned, wasn't the viral confrontation they had orchestrated, yet somehow it was becoming something more valuable, more meaningful. She tapped her assistant's shoulder. "Make sure we're getting clean audio. We're keeping all of this." 15 years of producing ambush interviews had never yielded something like this, something that transcended the formula of provocation, reaction, and viral spread. Reynolds found himself responding differently, the practiced cynicism temporarily suspended, the calculated confrontation giving way to something approaching genuine curiosity. "You mentioned bringing your whole self to your art," he said. His tone transformed, his posture shifted. How do you navigate an industry that often seems to demand compromise? The question still carried assumptions, still reflected his perspective, but the intent had fundamentally changed, from provocation to inquiry, from manufacturing content to seeking understanding. Carrie smiled, recognizing the shift, acknowledging it with characteristic grace. "I don't see authenticity as compromise," she explained. "I don't believe staying true to your values means judging others or refusing to engage with different perspectives. It means bringing your whole heart to your work while respecting everyone you encounter." Around them, the watching crowd had grown, industry figures drawn by the unexpected transformation of an ambush interview into something worthy of attention for reasons entirely different than originally anticipated. Leon Matthews nodded visibly. Other artists exchanged glances of approval, recognizing something rare, something genuine, emerging in a space normally characterized by performance, calculation, and artifice. Melissa watched with quiet pride as her client continued demonstrating values not merely proclaimed but lived, transforming what had been designed as a hit piece into something that revealed character, that illustrated the very faith Reynolds had attempted to weaponize. "My journey in music," Carrie continued, "has been about growth, about learning, about trying to create art that connects, that resonates, that reflects real experiences, without ever forgetting where I came from, what shaped me, what guides me still." Reynolds listened, actually listened, perhaps for the first time in years, not scanning for weakness, not seeking openings, not calculating provocations, but engaging with a perspective different from his own, with an experience beyond his understanding, with an authenticity rarely encountered in the manufactured landscape of celebrity media. "I've made mistakes," she acknowledged with disarming honesty. "I've fallen short of my own ideals more times than I can count. That's part of being human, part of the journey, part of what makes faith meaningful, not performance, but practice, not declaration, but growth." David's camera captured the transformation, not just in Carrie, not just in Reynolds, but in the entire atmosphere surrounding them, as performative journalism gave way to genuine exchange, as calculated confrontation yielded to authentic connection that no one had planned, no one had anticipated. Grammy-winning producer Samantha Wright leaned toward her colleague and whispered, "I've never seen anything like this. An ambush interview transformed into actual conversation." Her observation echoed silently through the gathered crowd as everyone recognized the rarity of what they were witnessing. Authenticity breaking through performance, connection transcending confrontation, humanity emerging from calculated content creation. Reynolds felt something unfamiliar stirring, professional curiosity beyond formula, beyond the manufactured controversy that had built his career and reputation. Something approaching respect for the woman who had refused to be provoked, refused to perform the expected role in his carefully constructed narrative. Megan's voice returned to his earpiece, different now, uncertain, almost wondering. "This is working somehow. This is working. Keep going, wherever this is leading." The producer recognized something valuable emerging from failed provocation, from transformed exchange, from an authentic connection neither had anticipated. "I think," Carrie said, her voice steady and clear, "what people respond to in any art isn't perfection, isn't performance, but authenticity, genuine emotion, the courage to be fully human, to share real experiences, real emotions, real struggles in ways that connect across all divisions." Reynolds nodded, finding himself agreeing. Despite years of cynicism, despite a career built on exploiting division, on manufacturing controversy, on creating content from conflict, something in her words, in her presence, had reached beyond professional persona, to touch something almost forgotten about why communication mattered. The crowd had grown larger now, drawn by the unusual energy emanating from what had begun as a typical ambush, but had transformed into something else entirely, something worth witnessing, worth remembering, worth sharing, for reasons completely different than originally intended. David panned the camera slowly, capturing not just the exchange but the context, the industry figures watching with respect, the transformation of ambush into dialogue, of provocation into connection, of a manufactured moment into an authentic exchange. "When I sing about love, loss, forgiveness," Carrie continued, When I perform songs that reflect real human emotions, I'm not contradicting faith. I'm exploring what it means to live with compassion, to struggle, to grow, to connect across all the divisions that seem to separate us. Her words carried no judgment, no defensiveness, just clarity, authenticity, perspective, that somehow continued transforming not just the interview, but the entire space, the entire concept of what such exchanges could be, could accomplish, could reveal. Reynolds asked another question, but different now, genuinely curious about her creative process, about her perspective, about the connection between faith and art that she had articulated with such clarity, such authenticity, such grace. The conversation continued unfolding in ways no one had predicted, no one had planned, least of all Reynolds, who had arrived with calculated provocations, with ambush strategy, with the intent to create viral confrontation at the expense of human dignity, but had found himself engaged instead in something approaching genuine dialogue, something transcending the hollow performance of celebrity journalism, of manufactured controversy, of content created through conflict. And as they continued speaking, as the exchange continued evolving, as the moment continued transforming, everyone watching, everyone listening, everyone present understood they were witnessing not the viral takedown Reynolds had planned, but something infinitely more valuable, authentic connection breaking through the artificial constraints of media performance. Beyond the ballroom walls, beyond the chandeliers and champagne, something extraordinary was happening across digital landscapes and living rooms as screens lit up with an unexpected revelation. The moment Carrie transformed confrontation, when an authentic voice broke through performance, had escaped the confines of the Beverly Hilton, spiraling outward with unprecedented speed. Ryan Garcia, social media director for entertainment, now stared at his monitors, watching metrics explode beyond anything he had seen in 10 years of digital media. "This isn't what we expected," he whispered to his assistant, who nodded wide-eyed as viewership numbers, comments, and shares flowed faster than their systems could track. Watch Carrie Underwood transform an ambush into a masterclass on grace, posted at Music Truth, with a 2-minute clip that had already reached 3 million views in 28 minutes. "I don't share her beliefs, but damn, the way she handled that disrespect," wrote a prominent liberal commentator, his share generating a cascade of conversation across political divides and cultural boundaries that normally remained firmly entrenched. In living rooms across America, viewers who had tuned in expecting the familiar satisfaction of a celebrity takedown, the rehearsed outrage, the manufactured conflict, found themselves instead leaning forward, phones in hand, recording, sharing, and responding to something that transcended the usual divisions. 32-year-old Marcus Coleman, who normally avoided anything related to country music, religious artists, or entertainment he considered not for him, texted the clip to his mother, a devoted fan, with a message that bridged years of cultural division. "You were right about her. She's the real deal. In entertainment. Nows." Executive offices, emergency meetings convened as senior leadership struggled to process what was unfolding on their networks, on screens across the country, across the world. "It's completely off format," said the programming director, his voice revealing a mixture of concern and confusion as the content they had commissioned, the confrontation they had planned, transformed into something entirely different. "But the engagement is unprecedented," countered the digital director, showing metrics that defied expectations, contradicting everything they thought they knew about what audiences wanted, what drove viewership, what created connection in digital media. In college dorms, office break rooms, airports, and restaurants, wherever screens displayed the unfolding exchange, unusual crowds gathered, watching not with partisan division or cultural sorting, but with shared attention, shared interest, shared recognition that something authentic was breaking through the familiar performance of celebrity journalism and manufactured controversy. Conservative media, which had prepared outraged responses to the expected disrespect, scrambled to adjust their coverage as the narrative slipped beyond the familiar patterns of cultural combat. "This is what living your faith looks like," wrote one outlet, sharing the unedited exchange rather than fragmenting it to fit a predetermined narrative or reinforce existing divisions. Liberal publications, normally dismissive of country artists and faith perspectives, found themselves in unfamiliar territory, acknowledging the power of Carrie's authentic voice, the grace in her response, the wisdom in her words that transcended the divisions they normally emphasized in pursuit of engagement, in pursuit of clicks. A lesson in bridge building. Read an unexpected headline from a progressive entertainment site. As the boundaries between media ecosystems, normally strictly enforced, suddenly blurred in an unprecedented moment of shared appreciation. Thomas Wilson, Reynolds' longtime mentor who had taught him the ambush formula, watched from his home office with growing unease, his phone exploding with messages, with observations about the transformation they were witnessing. For 15 years, they had perfected the approach: provocation, reaction, viral spread, giving audiences exactly what they assumed was wanted: confirmation of conflict, reinforcement of division, the emotional satisfaction of a celebrity takedown. And in one unplanned, authentic moment, Carrie Underwood had revealed the emptiness, the shallowness, the ultimate futility of that entire approach, of that entire formula. In network headquarters, executives watched the real-time metrics with stunned disbelief as viewership climbed dramatically mid-broadcast, reaching demographics they never attracted, holding attention they never sustained, generating a response they never inspired, with content they never intended to create. Social media moderators struggled to keep pace with comment sections, normally toxic wastelands of the partisan sniping, suddenly filled with thoughtful engagement, genuine questions, and honest reflections, something approaching actual dialogue across normally unbridgeable divides. A communications professor in Chicago recorded the segment for her students as an illustration of how an authentic response could transform a calculated provocation into a meaningful exchange that created unexpected connections across diverse perspectives. 3 major entertainment networks immediately scheduled editorial meetings to discuss implications for their formats, their approaches, their assumptions about celebrity coverage, audience desires, and what media could and should provide in an age of division and provocation. Carrie's social media accounts gained hundreds of thousands of followers within an hour. Her mentions filled not just with fan adoration, but with messages from across the cultural spectrum, acknowledging the power of her approach, the value of her perspective, the impact of her voice when not filtered through partisan framing, when encountered directly, authentically. Back in the production van outside the Beverly Hilton, Megan watched the remaining footage upload with something between awe and anxiety. As everything they had built, everything they knew, everything they assumed about their audience was suddenly called into question by the unexpected power of authenticity over performance, of connection over conflict, of dialogue over demolition. Reynolds' phone buzzed constantly now, colleagues, competitors, and critics all reaching out, all responding to what they had witnessed. The transformation of an ambush journalist known for takedowns, known for provocations, known for manufacturing viral moments at the expense of his subjects, at the expense of truth, at the expense of genuine human connection. Network phones rang continuously, interview requests pouring in for Carrie, not just from usual entertainment programs, but from news outlets, cultural commentators, morning shows, and podcasts, all sensing something important had happened, something that required follow-up, something that might even require change in their own approaches, assumptions, and formats. The segment that had been designed to create viral moments of celebrity discomfort had indeed gone viral, but for reasons no one had anticipated, no one had planned, no one had believed possible in the artificial landscape of entertainment media. A country music artist with genuine faith, with an authentic voice, with lived values, had broken through the carefully constructed architecture of performative journalism to remind everyone watching, everyone sharing, everyone responding what real conversation, what genuine exchange, what actual dialogue could look like, stripped of performance, infused with authenticity, grounded in respect. In the ballroom, the gala continued. Carrie moved through the crowd, speaking with guests, posing for photos, her demeanor unchanged by what had happened, by the transformation she had catalyzed, by the digital cascade now building around the exchange that had unfolded. Reynolds stood near the bar, still processing, still integrating, still attempting to understand what had happened to his carefully constructed plan, his ambush strategy, his viral formula. When confronted with authenticity, with grace, with the genuine living of values he had attempted to weaponize. David packed his camera equipment, his mind replaying what he had captured, not the manufactured moment originally sought, but something infinitely more valuable, something that might actually contribute to cultural conversation, to human understanding, rather than merely exploiting division in pursuit of metrics, in pursuit of engagement, in pursuit of hollow professional success. And as the evening continued unfolding, as the digital response continued building, as the unexpected impact continued spreading across platforms, across perspectives, across normally unbridgeable divides, something shifted, not just in format, not just in approach, but in the fundamental understanding of possibilities for connection across difference, for dialogue across division, for authentic exchange beyond performance, beyond provocation, beyond the artificial constraints of media formula that had limited human interaction for so long. 3 days after the gala, the ripples had become waves, crashing against established shores and reshaping the media landscape in ways no one had predicted. Carrie Underwood sat in her home studio, watching as the conversation continued beyond her control, beyond anyone's, taking on a life entirely its own. Entertainment. Now's executive team had called an emergency weekend meeting, their entire format suddenly questioned, not just by viewers or critics, but by their own staff and producers, who had watched what happened when ambush journalism encountered authentic grace, when provocation yielded to genuine dialogue. The clip had been viewed 90 million times across platforms and demographics, transcending usual media bubbles and reaching people who normally scrolled past anything related to country music, faith, or celebrity interviews. Media analysts wrote lengthy pieces examining the unexpected phenomenon, the hunger for authentic exchange revealed in those unscripted minutes when an artist refused to react, refused to perform the expected role in manufactured controversy. Jason Reynolds, known for his ambush tactics, remained uncharacteristically silent, his usual social media presence suspended as he processed what had happened, what it meant for his approach, his brand, his entire career built on provocation. USC's Annenberg School announced a special panel to examine the implications for entertainment journalism, media ethics, and the possibility of connection across divides in an age of performative conflict. Carrie's music streams increased by 300%, not just among existing fans, but expanding to demographics that normally avoided country music, faith-oriented artists, or anything labeled with categories they had been conditioned to reject. Her phone rang again. Another interview request, this time from a prestigious Sunday program, not to discuss music or promote albums, but to explore what had happened at the gala, the moment authenticity transformed provocation, and what it might mean for cultural discourse. She accepted, recognizing the responsibility that came with the unexpected attention, the opportunity to build on what had started, to expand the conversation beyond a single moment into something more lasting, more meaningful. 3 major entertainment networks had already announced format changes for their celebrity coverage, moving away from ambush tactics, provocation, and manufactured conflict toward approaches that prioritize substance, respected subjects, and acknowledge complexity beyond clickbait. Jennifer Reese, a producer at a rival network, watched the changes with growing unease, insisting in a staff meeting that people still wanted controversy, still wanted conflict, still wanted celebrities caught in unguarded moments. But the viewership data suggested otherwise, as audiences increasingly migrated toward content that offered depth, that respected its subjects, that prioritized authenticity over manufactured spectacle. Communications professors added the segment to their course materials as an illustration of grace under pressure, how an authentic response could transform provocation into dialogue, into connection, into something that transcended the artificial constraints of contemporary media formulas. Journalism schools analyze the interview techniques, the power dynamics, the moment when an ambush failed, when control was lost, and when authenticity prevailed over performance, creating unexpected connections across divides. Entertainment. Now's ratings shifted, not declining, as some had predicted, but transforming in composition, attracting viewers who had previously avoided celebrity coverage, finding nothing in manufactured controversy that warranted their attention or engagement. Network executives across television revised their assumptions about audience desires, about engagement metrics, about what success meant, as the cascade of response continued building, revealing a hunger for substance, for authenticity, for something beyond the hollow satisfaction of celebrity takedowns and manufactured conflict. Media ethics panels convened discussions featuring journalists, critics, academics, and industry professionals, all examining the implications of what some were already calling the Underwood effect, the moment when the artificial constructs of entertainment media were momentarily transcended. Young journalists, particularly women, regardless of political orientation, reached out to industry mentors with questions about approaches, about frameworks, about the possibility of entertainment coverage beyond formula, beyond provocation, beyond the manufactured moments that had defined celebrity journalism for decades. Conservative media, which initially celebrated the moment as a victory over liberal bias, gradually shifted toward deeper analysis of what had actually happened, when provocation met grace, when authenticity emerged, when genuine exchange created unexpected connection across divides. Progressive outlets, traditionally dismissive of country artists and faith perspectives, found themselves questioning assumptions about audience interest, about effective communication, about the responsibility of media to cultural discourse beyond partisan framing and stereotypes. Entertainment. Now's digital team analyzed metrics from the broadcast and subsequent sharing, finding patterns that defied conventional wisdom about what drove engagement, what created connection, and what audiences actually hungered for in entertainment media beyond simple provocation. 3 competing networks extended interview invitations to Carrie, not seeking controversy, not seeking conflict, not seeking manufactured moments, but something more substantial, more authentic, more aligned with what audiences had responded to. Jason Reynolds' agent fielded calls from network executives seeking guidance on his willingness to evolve, to reconsider his approach, to adapt his methods, to transform ambush journalism into something more sustainable, more ethical, more valuable. The Paley Center announced a special session at their upcoming media festival to examine the implications for entertainment journalism, celebrity coverage, and media ethics in an age of provocation and division. Lisa Williams, a viewer from Tennessee who had watched the segment with her teenage daughter, found themselves discussing the substance of faith beyond cultural stereotypes for the first time in years, bridging previously difficult conversations about values, beliefs, and perspectives. University journalism departments reported a sudden increase in interest in courses examining media ethics, entertainment coverage, journalistic responsibility, and the relationship between authenticity and engagement in contemporary information landscapes. The segment had been translated into 14 languages, subtitled and shared across international borders, carrying implications beyond the American entertainment context, and raising global questions about authentic dialogue across cultural and ideological divides. Media watchdog organizations noted subtle shifts in format and approach across entertainment programming in the days following: more substance, less ambush, more conversation, less provocation, more respect, less exploitation, as competitors scrambled to capture the unexpected audience hunger for something beyond performance. Reynolds' producer, Megan, spent hours reviewing past segments with a new perspective, seeing patterns of manipulation, of disrespect, of exploitation that had once been invisible in the comfortable familiarity of formula, now revealed in the harsh light of comparison to the authentic exchange they had witnessed. Artists of faith, particularly, found platforms previously unavailable, as media outlets recognized the hunger for perspectives that had long been filtered through hostile framing, dismissive introductions, and stereotypical presentations designed to diminish rather than illuminate genuine experience. Music industry executives received partnership inquiries from organizations across the cultural spectrum, seeking collaboration on initiatives beyond stereotypical categories in direct response to the authentic perspective Carrie had articulated during her unexpected moment. Carrie herself recognized the responsibility that came with this attention, the opportunity to demonstrate the possibility of an authentic voice beyond stereotype, of a faith perspective beyond caricature, of an artist's contribution beyond category, of human connection beyond division. And as the conversation continued evolving, as the implications continued unfolding, as the moment continued reverberating through the media landscape, through cultural discourse, through individual relationships previously strained by stereotypical division and categorical thinking, something shifted, not just in format or approach, but in the underlying assumptions about what was possible, for connection across seemingly unbridgeable divides, for authentic exchange beyond performance, for genuine dialogue beyond provocation, beyond the artificial constraints that had limited human interaction, human understanding, and human connection for far too long. 1 month after the exchange that changed everything, Carrie Underwood stood backstage at the Berklee College of Music, preparing to address a packed auditorium of students, journalists, and industry professionals gathered to discuss the intersection of authenticity, ethics, and entertainment. "I didn't walk into that gala planning to create a moment," she began, her voice clear and steady, carrying the same authenticity that had shattered the carefully constructed performance of entertainment journalism. "I simply responded from my heart, from my truth, from my lived experience." The audience listened intently, not through the lens of cultural division or categorical sorting, but with shared curiosity about what happens when provocation meets grace, when performance encounters authenticity, when manufactured conflict transforms into genuine connection. Across the media landscape, profound shifts had taken place. Entertainment now had undergone a complete transformation, prioritizing substance over spectacle, respect over provocation, and genuine exchange over manufactured controversy. Jason Reynolds, having taken several weeks off, returned with a public statement acknowledging the limitations of his career-long approach. "I've been asking myself whether I've been contributing to understanding or merely to division, whether I've been illuminating artists or exploiting them for views, for relevance, for professional advancement." His unexpected honesty went viral, sparking discussions among colleagues, competitors, and critics who recognized something important in his willingness to evolve. Entertainment programming across networks shifted towards substance, attracting audiences who had previously disengaged from celebrity media, finding nothing of value in manufactured controversy. Media competitors revised their formats, rethinking what audiences truly wanted, what engagement meant, and what responsibility they bore in cultural discourse beyond exploitation. As Carrie continued her address, she reflected on the hunger for sincerity, for conversations that acknowledge the fullness of human experience beyond stereotypes. "I believe people are hungry for voices that speak from lived experience rather than performing expected roles, for exchanges that seek understanding rather than generating conflict," she said, as the audience nodded, some taking notes, some simply absorbing the possibility of entertainment media beyond familiar patterns of exploitation. Berklee's Institute had launched a new fellowship program examining authenticity in artistry and its impact on audience connection, and applications flooded in from students eager to contribute to the evolution of entertainment communication. The music industry too responded, forming partnerships that transcended cultural divides, seeking bridges where barriers once stood. "Audiences aren't as divided as our media portrays," Carrie observed. "Our backgrounds vary, our expressions sometimes conflict, but beneath it all, we share an appreciation for authenticity, for genuine human connection." Jason Reynolds, now hosting a reimagined format centered on understanding rather than controversy, saw his ratings drop initially, then climb, drawing viewers who valued respect and depth over provocation. Nielsen data and academic research confirmed the shift. Audiences across demographics sought authentic dialogue, having abandoned media that offered only exploitation or stereotype. Universities established research initiatives exploring the implications for journalism, entertainment, and ethics, questioning the role of media beyond provocation. What if we created media environments that rewarded substance, that prioritized understanding, that valued authentic voices over rehearsed performance? Carrie challenged. What if we acknowledged the complexity of expression beyond simplistic cultural framing? When she stood in that ballroom, responding to intentional provocation, refusing to react, refusing to perform the expected role, she hadn't considered the broader implications. She had simply remained true to herself, to her values, to her understanding of genuine exchange. The moment had since inspired artists of faith, particularly women, to demand their voices be heard beyond dismissive framing and stereotypical presentation. More significantly, it had prompted media executives, producers, and hosts to reconsider their assumptions about audience desires and their responsibility to cultural discourse beyond ratings and formulaic engagement. We have an opportunity now, Carrie concluded, to transform how we talk about art, how we engage across differences, how we understand diverse expressions beyond cultural warfare, beyond the artificial constraints that have limited genuine exchange for far too long. The audience rose in a standing ovation, not in partisan enthusiasm, but in recognition of the possibilities when authenticity breaks through performance, when substance replaces spectacle, when understanding outweighs provocation. Her words resonated beyond the auditorium, beyond Berkeley, beyond Boston, into living rooms, classrooms, and boardrooms, where audiences had witnessed the possibility of entertainment media that actually connected rather than merely provoked, that contributed to understanding rather than confirming categorical perspectives. Jason Reynolds watched the live stream from his office, considering what it meant for his own evolution, for his contribution to a media landscape shifting beyond exploitation, beyond the hollow satisfaction of viral moments, towards something more meaningful, more valuable, more aligned with genuine human connection. Carrie's social media filled with messages from across cultural spectrums, acknowledging the impact of that moment, the hunger it exposed for something substantial, respectful, and authentic in entertainment discourse. Across the country, similar conversations unfolded as performance briefly yielded to possibility, as stereotypes gave way to curiosity, as provocation surrendered to connection, revealing a deep hunger for authentic exchange that transcended cultural division and offered hope for discourse beyond exploitation. If this story moved you, if it made you reconsider how media functions, how audiences engage, how understanding forms across cultural divides, share it, because sometimes transformation begins not with grand declarations, not with format changes, not with institutional reform, but with a simple insistence on authenticity, on speaking truth, on being heard. Subscribe for more stories that illuminate possibilities. When we break through the artificial constraints of entertainment media, when we insist on authenticity, when we prioritize connection over conflict, when we finally start seeing beyond stereotypes, beyond categories, beyond the divisions we've accepted as inevitable, when in reality they may be more artificial, more surmountable, more transformable than we ever imagined.